Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'm going to throw a shot across the bow. All of those Marvel fanboys out there, and anybody throwing hate and shade towards the DCEU, don't do it. That's my advice to you guys. I'm only going to say it once, and I'm going to throw 2 shots across the bow so you understand I'm serious. Alright? Don't go trying to throw shade on the DCEU. I'm going to be looking through social media. I'm going to look on YouTube. I'm going to look all over the place for y'all. And anytime y'all start throwing shade on the DCEU, I will take your very words and I will throw it back at you concerning the MCU. Don't do it. Don't cross the line. Alright? The days of me being quiet are over. Alright, so in front of you, just so you understand what I'm saying, you will see that the costuming of both the CW and Marvel's MCU movie characters, they're about the same. It's a lot of leather going on there. A lot of leather suits. Alright? Now we know there are people who are involved in the MCU who have been doing stuff with the CW. Alright? In fact, we have directors who have been directing MCU movies, and they're going to come across and they're going to direct DCEU movies. What I'm trying to say is, let's not hate on here. Okay? Now, I put cheap, low-budget TV shots of Thor Ragnarok and CW. What I'm trying to tell you guys is, the standard that you are criticizing the DCEU for, the CGI, the wardrobes, the cinematography, is far more superior than what you see in the MCU. So my advice to you guys is to lay off. Alright? You don't want to pick a fight with me, because I will personally put y'all on blast. You can see the difference in cinematography when you're talking about, we're using Thor Ragnarok as an MCU movie right now. When you look at Thor Ragnarok or CW, they have basically about the same level of cinematography. Can you see that? Let me zoom it in so you guys can see. Let me zoom it in. Alright. So here you got Thor Ragnarok right here. And you got Legends of Tomorrow right here. And you can see the costuming is the same. The sets are about the same. Alright. And look at the cinematography of the DCU movie Justice League. It's a totally different level. Alright. It's on a totally different scale. Totally different level. So let's just kind of chill. Alright. With the insults for the DCEU. I'm trying to be nice here. Okay? I don't want to hear nobody on social media talking ill about the DCU anymore. Alright? I'm just saying, now it's up to you guys, because anytime you start throwing an insult, I'm going to throw one back in your face on what you said. Okay? I'm not going to let it slide. Now, all you Marvel fans out there who have been trashing Batman v Superman by saying the Martha moment, just remember, you got several Martha moments in several of the MCU movies. Don't let me have to go out there with my switch and beat y'all. Alright? And pull it from the archives and show you guys what it is. Alright? I don't want to do that. So, let's play nice. You stay in your lane. You like the MCU. That's your thing. If you don't like the DCEU, then just stay away from it. Alright? If you are a DC and a Marvel fan, but you don't like the DCEU, or you have negative things to say about it, just keep quiet. Zip your mouth. Alright? You don't like it? Focus on things you like. Because any one of you, I don't care who you are, start speaking bad about the DCEU, I'm going to take the same words you say, and the thing you like the most, I'm going to expose it for what it is. So don't do it. Just don't do it. Alright? You feel tempted to say something? Say nothing. Just zip that mouth. Right? Because you want to deal with me. Because a lot of the Marvel fans, they're very defensive about the Marvel properties. They don't want nobody to speak bad about Marvel properties. And we, as the DCEU fans, we must just sit back and watch the DCU get bashed because it's a style to get bashed. We mustn't say nothing about Marvel. Nothing. Right? You want your cake and you want to eat it too. You want to bash something and then you want nobody to bash you. It don't work like that. It's cause and effect. So if you don't say nothing bad about the DC and you focus on Marvel, cool. If you go and you open your big mouth and say anything bad, I'm gonna look straight through social media. I'm looking for y'all. And I want to see exactly what you say, because I want to take your words, and then I'm going to show you what it is that you're really saying. So please don't test me. All right? Because Aquaman's coming around the corner. I like Aquaman, and I ain't want to hear nothing. I want to hear peep. I don't want to hear no negativity about Aquaman. It's like that. Yeah, it's like that now. All right? If y'all want to big up the MCU, please do. Have fun. Talk all the good stuff about the MCU. But when you cross the line, you start speaking about the DCU negatively, and you think I'm going to just take that, you're wrong. That's where I will shoot back a shot at you, and you will not survive. You will be fatally wounded. So please, stay away from trying to bash the DCEU. You're going to deal with fire, something you cannot handle. Just leave the DCEU alone. If you don't like it, just don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Leave it alone. Right? I leave certain MCU movies alone. I fired some shots today. Don't make me shoot some more shots tomorrow. Okay then. Warning. I sent it out. Who has ears, let them hear. If you're hard-headed and you don't understand, you will learn. And you will learn quickly why you don't mess with the DCEU from here on in. I'm just saying. Press your luck. See what happens. We're going to talk about this. This is one of the memes I made. And it talks about the fact that if you look at each DCEU trilogy, each one of them, whether it's Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, or it is Justice League, at the end there is a scene with the Kent farm. And each one of these scenes, you see a panning across a field. In Man of Steel, you saw the panning across the field to the Kent farm gravesite. In Batman v Superman, you saw a panning across the field through a funeral procession to that same Kent farm gravesite. But in Justice League, you saw something a little bit different, where you panned across the field, but this time to the Kent farm. And that Kent farm was restored because the Kent farm had actually been taken away from Martha Kent. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right? Now, what's interesting about all of these things is the cinematography of Man of Steel and the cinematography of Justice League for that particular scene, they look almost identical. The color palettes are almost identical. It's Batman v Superman has a different color palette. And I'll tell you what I think that means. In my opinion, I think that Man of Steel and Justice League were happening around the time of spring. Spring. Why? Because both films really are depicting Superman's birth. Whether it's his rebirth or his birth. It's the return of Superman. Whereas in Batman v Superman, which had a color palette that's kind of drained for most of the film, even from the beginning scenes with the Waynes who had died and the funeral of Bruce Wayne's parents. Ironically, the Symmetry is the funeral of Martha Kent's son. We see this very bleak looking cinematography, devoid of color. And the reason is, as Bruce Wayne says, things fall, things on earth, and what is fall is fallen. And so I believe that the end of Batman v Superman, as the beginning of Batman v Superman, is in the time of fall. And obviously it's the time of fall in the beginning of the movie because we see leaves falling, right? The movie begins with a leaf falling even before you see anything else. So I believe that Batman v Superman is the season of fall. Superman fell from life. He died, right? So I love that. The seasons, you have spring, the coming forth, the blooming, the blossoming, the fruition, things coming to fruition, and then you have fall, the loss, the death. And so when we're looking at all three scenes, once we talk about the Kent farm, we're not really addressing Superman per se. We're addressing Clark. And why Clark? Because Clark is Clark Kent, yes. And two, because Clark is actually what we see. Kal-El is harder to see. Kal-El is physically what Clark is. Kal-El is in heritage what Clark is. He's physically a Kryptonian, not an Earthling. But in terms of Clark, Clark is what Kal-El really is, because he's been culturized, he's grown up, he's been raised as a human being. He's interacted with many human beings. He's Kryptonian, so he has all these extra strengths and abilities and certain things he can do, which only Kryptonians could do on Earth. But he is he's been raised, he's been cultured as a human. And even though physically he's not a human, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise, he's a human. All right? So that's why I talk about Clark, because he grew up as a human on a farm. So all of these are the Kent farm, therefore we talk about Clark. So we talk about Clark's fulfillment of Jonathan's hope in Man of Steel, and that's the birth of Superman. And that's why this scene goes to the Kent farm gravesite, because at the Kent farm gravesite we're looking at, we're actually examining the reuniting of the entire family around the grave of Jonathan Kent. So Superman, Martha Kent is there, and Jonathan Kent, and they're looking at the grave, and they're remembering Jonathan Kent and what he represented. Jonathan Kent, to me, is the original Superman. He really is Superman, and it's really his values that Clark embraced and carries with him when he deals with other human beings. While Jor-El, he discovers 33 years later, really that was one of his purposes. He wanted Superman to be that. He wanted Kal-El to be that. Jonathan's the one that raised him, that got those values into him. Him and Martha, they put that kind of value system into him. So really, Superman's life is a testimony to Jonathan Kent's upbringing of him. And I always try to express to people, if someone dies who's close to you, the best way to honor them is to carry on the positive things that they impact, their ideals that they had in your life. You entwine that person in your life with the memories you remember of them. And so bringing people to remembrance is not necessarily in the sense of sitting down and talking about them, even though that's good too. But it also, you can bring someone to remembrance through your actions, through your behavior. So in Batman v Superman, we are really in the season of fall, the season of loss, the season of nakedness, the season of bleakness. And in a way, this signaled the world without Superman. And so you look here across the wonderful ears of corn here, and there's this funeral procession going towards the Kent farm gravesite, this time for the very thing that Jonathan Kent was hoping would be this great joy and this great hope for the world. Now we see that Jonathan Kent, it seems as if that hope is now gone and Superman is now dead. There's this loss of him. So that's what's in BVS. BVS has a lot going on in it. It has a lot going on in it. And it's a beautiful movie because, like I was trying to explain to people, it's the interstitial tissue, it's the joining tissue between Man of Steel and Justice League. Justice League is like the multiplication or fruition of Man of Steel. But in between that, you have this season of leanness where it's kind of the all-time low in superhero movies, because we have these two superheroes that are not working together. They're actually looking to go against one another, which is a low point in superhero history. Superheroes generally don't go against each other; they usually work together. So it's kind of the lean time, and it's a challenging time. It's a trial time, because Superman's not always seen as this beacon of hope to the world, and then on top of that we have another superhero who's brooding and looking to actually take him down. So it's not the highest of the heights, but it is like the trial. It's like the test the trial of manhood, shall we say. Okay, the trial by fire. And so Superman was going through that. So that's what BVS really is. And out of that, there's a scripture that says, unless a grain of wheat falls to earth and die, we can't have a forest. We can't have a whole field of plants. And basically this is what happened. Superman died, and in so doing, now, whereas Clark honored his father by carrying on his traditions, that is, Jonathan Kent and Jor-El, both who have deceased and passed, Batman decided to carry on the hope and tradition and keep that beacon, that fire going after Superman passed. And because of that, there was this multiplication effect, so that Justice League came out of that. So you find that this Man of Steel setting right here, this picture pretty much resembles, it really does resemble quite a lot this picture. In fact, they almost look identical, don't they? And this is still the Martha Kent farm. The color scheme, the cinematography is very similar. And this is at the end of Justice League. So it has even more, a greater multiplication effect. It's a larger, greater impact that Justice League has here than Man of Steel at its beginning, which is really awesome. Okay, let's just talk a little bit more about the journey. So Superman dies here in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. And what's interesting is here we see the gravesite of Clark Kent. This is at the beginning of Justice League. And really huge is the fact that Martha has lost her husband many, many years before. Now she loses her son. And almost immediately after she loses her son, she loses her home. And that says volumes, really. It's something that says she loses her entire family. She lost her husband. She still had her son. When she loses her son, she no longer has a home. She's all alone. She's by herself. And so she goes, reaches out to Lois Lane in Metropolis, but she's all alone. She loses her home. Her home is foreclosed. Literally, she loses her home, and then mentally and spiritually, she's also lost her home. She is like, if anybody knows the story of Ruth, she's like Naomi. She's alone. She's lost her husband, her two sons. And there's only Naomi and Oprah. And Oprah decides to head back to Moab, so it's just her and Naomi now. And that's pretty much the story here, where bit by bit Martha has to find more ways to cope and survive alone. And you can see it on her face. And you can see she's got the moving truck right there, the moving van that she's about to move out with her dog. And you can see the home is foreclosed. So she loses her son after Superman's death, and she loses her home almost immediately after. And when we revisit Clark Joseph Kent's grave, which doesn't have a date on it, remember, this time when we visit it later on in Justice League, this is kind of the turning point. There's already been, the Justice League's already had a discussion. Batman is saying, nope, Superman has to come back. So they're digging up the grave right here. This is the scene where they actually start to dig up the grave. If you were to pan backwards, you would see the Flash and Cyborg doing some digging and talking. Alright? And so this is a very pivotal scene in not only Justice League, but also in Batman v Superman. See, every effect in life has a delayed sort of action to it. Batman was brought to life, well, I'm sorry, not Batman. Bruce Wayne was brought to life by Clark. Clark infused life into Bruce as Bruce was about to kill Clark. It so happens, in a way, Bruce did kill Clark because eventually Clark died. So it's this delayed effect. But here's the interesting thing. Bruce felt guilty, but at the same time he felt inspired by Clark and Clark's life and what Clark had done to him. And so the dawn of justice began the moment Bruce became hopeful because Clark put that hope in him. Clark was not even dead when Bruce became hopeful, right? We remember that Martha moment is the moment Bruce became hopeful. And because Bruce got the opportunity to redeem himself by saving Clark's mother, Martha. And that's when Bruce became hopeful. All right? So not only did Clark give him the gift of giving his life back, because Bruce was he felt very guilty that he was about to kill Clark, but also Clark gave him a bonus gift. He gave him the gift of saving his mother through Martha. This is priceless. Okay? And so Bruce will eternally feel indebted to Clark, no matter what. And what's very interesting about it is that was the moment that the dawn of justice happened. It wasn't the moment Clark died. It was the moment that Bruce got this new stint of life. And Bruce didn't know how to handle that. And, Wonder Woman helped him along the way. But this is what brought Bruce this delayed reaction to wanting to bring Clark back to life. And so we reached this pivotal point here. Now, at this point in the game, Clark finally gets brought back to life. And we talk about the return of Clark Kent. Now, we saw the return of Clark Kent in Man of Steel, where he returns back home to the Kent farm to meet his mother, Martha Kent, after his long journey. He's had this long journey in search of who he is, his purpose, and he's found out who he is. He's found out what his purpose is, and he's coming back home triumphant, very happy. And he greets his mother with an embrace, which you see right here. You can see he's very happy, and she's very happy too. She can feel his joy, and you can see her holding the top of his head, saying, "Oh, my son, my son." She's happy to see him once again. And so we have this mother and son embrace. But we also have this parallel in Justice League. This is the return of Clark Kent from the dead this time. And you can see he's a much more mature man. And his mother is she's ecstatic. She can't believe what she's seeing. It's a very unbelievable experience. So that embrace is a lot more passionate. It's a lot more emotional. This one, she's more in control. She's the one that's happy she let him go, and she's glad he's coming back and he's found out who he is. Here, she's literally dependent on him. You can see her gripping him, so happy that she's got back her son. So there's a whole different dynamic going on there. And with Zack Snyder imagery, of course, with Man of Steel and Justice League, it makes sense that this happens, okay? Because she's lost her son, she's lost her home, and now her home she's got back her home. She's got back her son. Her son is everything. Her son is her home. Her son is her life. Now, there's a little bit of difference, though. There's a little bit of difference between Justice League Superman Clark Kent returning to his mother, and Clark Kent returning from Man of Steel to his mother. When he was returning from Man of Steel to his mother, basically he was carrying his possessions. You can see he's young. You can see how his movements are. He's young and energetic. Let me zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit better. There you go. He's a young, energetic young man, and he's coming in there to his family. Here he's a grown man. You can see he's a fully developed, mature man, the Superman you know. And he's not just returning to Martha by himself. Lois has called Martha, and she's arranged for Martha to see her son. And as such, Superman is leaving Lois here to go and reunite with his mother. So this is something a little bit different to what happened in Man of Steel. And this is not a Clark who does not know who he is. This is a Clark who knows who he is now. He's fully been through the fires. He's been through everything. And this is a Clark now who knows who he is. And he's returning to his mother. And she's ecstatic. Right? So it's just one of those interesting things that makes it a little bit different. And so as a result of that, when we see the end of Justice League and we're zooming in across the Kent farm to the home that's restored for Martha Kent, we see that she's regained her son and she's also regained her home. Of course, it's interesting that her home is regained through Bruce Wayne again. Bruce Wayne is the one that helped her to regain her son, And Bruce Wayne is also the one that helps her to regain her home. And so it's very fitting that Bruce Wayne is that intervening presence, that hopeful presence that facilitates this. He lived out Superman in his absence. And so he was able to bring back Superman, and not only to do that, but he was also able to restore to Martha her home, her son. So it's very impressive, the symmetry that you see in Justice League, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. Leave your comments in the comment section below. There's a lot of stuff going on in Justice League that I just can't get around. I just don't have the time and resources to really explain all this stuff to you guys. I would love to just spend days just unpacking a whole bunch of stuff in Justice League, but it's hard because, like I said before, Justice League is like the end of a trilogy, so it's going to be rich with all kinds of stuff, because it's tying this thing together, it's tying that, it's tying this, it's tying that, it's tying this. I haven't even talked about Suicide Squad yet, and I haven't really fully exhausted Wonder Woman yet. And so there's Man of Steel. You see a lot of Man of Steel parallels. By the way, there's a lot of BVS parallels too. Don't get it twisted. But BVS is, again, like I said before, it's the avenue, it's the route towards connecting Man of Steel with Justice League. A lot of things that happen in Man of Steel come to full fruition and multiply in Justice League. And of course, we already know the Justice League was birthed. And so again, the person who birthed the Justice League is Batman. So Batman really actually multiplied Superman a number of times, threefold, fourfold, in many respects, because of Batman's holding of that torch and carrying that torch. We had both spiritually, mentally, and then physically the rebirth of Superman into the hearts of the Justice League, which rebirthed the Justice League. Then we had Superman literally being reborn, and then we have Martha getting back her home, her son, Lewis getting back her husband to be, and just a whole the world getting back a beacon of hope, and just so many different things going on here. So I hope that you guys enjoy this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget you can donate to my channel. I'll have some other videos later on. This is kind of like an exclusive at this point in time because I haven't shared this stuff on social media yet. You're the first to get it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is a lengthy video. You guys have a great one.